are the big players within this market? And in total, what is the need? What is the demand within the market for the particular products that you're trying to offer or your solution to the customers? And with that, when you're solving a problem, a consumer problem, you need to understand their pain points. What do I mean by their pain points? When you're providing a solution, what is your value proposition? What is unique about your product that is going to help you penetrate the market and beat the competition? And what strategy are you going to use to enter into the market? Are you going to be a disruptor where you are going to bring in new ways of doing things, introduce new methods of doing things, or you are going to be a follower but not the leader? So your marketing strategy will also be a way of giving you a position for an individual to want to work with you, because one, you have your data right, you have your facts right, you have a very impeccable market entry strategy, and you are solving a pain point to the customer. So within that, when you solve a problem to the customer, then it is possible that the customer will buy the product or service that you're offering. Because you can come up with a very beautiful innovation or a very beautiful idea, but is the idea sellable? Is it something that a customer is willing to spend their money to be able to get? Because when you come to pitch, your interest is focusing on the ask, how much money you need someone to invest. But as a judge or someone in the space that understands what it takes to be able to make money, it has to go down to the customer. Is your customer willing to spend on your innovation for you to be able to make business? Because I saw other presentation yesterday that were focusing on the uniqueness of the innovation. But how accessible is the innovation? How affordable is the innovation? So if your client cannot access, cannot afford your innovation, then what sense does it make to say that you are an entrepreneur? Because you cannot make business at the end of the day. So when you're presenting your business model and you're presenting your business case, make sure that your presentation and your product offering is able to penetrate into the market. Okay? As we continue, we also need to understand that yes, the business model is solid. The market strategy is perfect. Your value proposition is above board. Your production processes and the technology that you are adopting is top-notch. Then, now it is time to negotiate with the funding organization or the business partner. Now you want to make an arrangement. You've scored on all those elements. When it is time now to discuss negotiation, what is it that you want to offer in return of a share within the company? Are you willing to go for debt? And what the arrangement? And for those of us who have had an opportunity to watch the Shark Tank, you can mean that it's always a hassle. Trying to convince interested individuals who have already seen value for money in an investment that you are put. They want to challenge you. They want a portion of your business, but in exchange of funding. So how do you tell how much you can cede of your ownership within the business? There is always a catch-22 situation many a times that many of us, especially for the founders, you feel that I'd rather have the 100% of my company, even if I'm making 100, or even if it is worth 1 million. But you find it so hard to own 50% of that company that is worth maybe 15, 20 million. Do we get the difference? It does not make sense to own 100% shares of a company that is only worth 2 million. It is better to own 50% of a company that is worth 20 million because you have an opportunity to have investors on board. But of course, there have to be clear entry and exit. When you are entering into partnership of whatever nature for whatever form of funding or financing, be clear to have an exit clause. That exit clause is what will either tie you or give you an opportunity to exit the partnership at a given time when it is ripe for you. So even if we are going to fundraise, in summary, as we conclude, maybe also give an opportunity for a few questions. The bigger question that you need to ask yourself is, yes, I've been at a point where now I can attract investment, financing and investment. What is it that I need to look out for? First of all, are you able to still have an influence and a control within your company? And what is the exit strategy with the financiers? Whether it is venture capital, whether it is equity, or whether it is individuals who want to, or money from friends. And let me remind us this. Many a times, for those of us who have relatives and parents, a relative can fund your business. Hello? A relative can fund your business. Your brother can give you capital to expand your business. Your sister or your father or your parent or even your spouse can give you money to fund your business. Do you clearly know where they start and end? Ama sasa hiyo inakuwa ni yetu. Sorry for... It has to be very clear, ladies and gentlemen, that when you invest in my business, this is where we start and this is where it ends. It is not being mean, you are just being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur does not stop you from still being a brother, a sister, a child, and a spouse. So the exit strategy has to be very clear, regardless of who funds your innovation. And as I conclude, this is the summary. 1, be clear with the problem, understand the root cause of the problem. And the problem needs to be very thoroughly researched, talk to people, do background check, understand the finer details about the problem. After that, then generate a solution. A solution that is going to be received within the market. A solution that talks and feeds to the consumers who are going to consume the solution. The solution should be affordable, accessible, and user-friendly. The other bit is understand your market niche. As you do your presentation, understand the competition, understand the demand, understand your geographical segmentation, and have a clear understanding of what market share you're going to control, because that market share is what is going to inform you on your growth plan. Then understand how the team that you're going to work with, the processes that is required. Do you need the technical expertise that are required to deliver on that project? And then you also need to understand the budget requirement and how you're going to source for that budget. So for you to be able to implement the innovation, you require financing. It has to be very clear to you as the innovator and as the entrepreneur to be able to identify the market. And then the other bit that also needs to be very clear is the growth plan for the company. You have to have short-term and long-term growth plans for the company. What is it that you want to achieve? So setting goals that are smart is very, very important for you to be able to achieve the desired outcomes. With that, I'd want to say thank you, and the floor is open for any questions. If there would be, I'd be glad to try and get responses. Philip.
Thank you very much, Frederick. He deserves more, please. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I think I will let you take your seat. We are going to have 1 or 2 pitches from the audience. Then we'll have a 5 minutes interactive session as we transit to the panel discussion. Is that in order? Thank you very much. We are still in time, and allow me to recognize the presence and participation of the Executive Director, LEAP Africa, who is joining us online. Her name is Kehinde Ayene, Miss Kehinde Ayene. Edie, if you could hear us, please just say hello so that we acknowledge your presence online as well.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning to you. It's 11 a.m. in Nairobi. I'm sure it's around 9 a.m. Thank you for rising early to join us and for sparing time for this. We are going to have two pitches from the audience, and I will start by inviting Motobrick Solutions, represented by Calvin. Calvin is a colleague of Edwin, and he has a number of his colleagues in the audience. Calvin, please take the stage, and in less than 3 minutes, talk to us about Motobricks and what collaborations you're looking for.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning again. Let's be energetic, kidogo. Tumekula. My name is Calvin, and I just want to speak to you this morning. We all have something in common, and that is we all eat, right? Don't we? We do eat, right? We also have another problem in the world right now, and it is the issue of climate change, right? It's a buzzword everywhere we go, right? We have people who don't really care about some things. They only care about, will I wake up today, eat? Will my children go to school? Tick. Will this happen to me? Tick. Tomorrow what will happen? Tick. And that's how life goes, right? So if you tell them about some issues, they will have a problem identifying with those issues and doing something about it. That is what I'm here to talk about. So as I said, my name is Calvin Shikuku from Mathare. I am the CEO of Motobricks. Motobricks is a social enterprise that engages unemployed youth in the provision of renewable energy in form of organic briquettes that are burnt like charcoal. This is a cheap alternative to fossil fuels, where communities that we work with collect waste. We have a process where that waste is processed. At the end of that, we have fuel, and that fuel can be bought cheaply by households. Our target market are informal settlements. A woman who cooks food, who sells that food to people out there, but fuel normally takes up to 50% of the total cost of business. And so we've always wanted to solve that. How did this start? We grew up in Mathare, and I have very impressive co-founders. And having grown up in Mathare, going to school, I normally joke that what kept me in school was the food I used to go and take in school. And it's not a joke, and they can attest to that. I used to live near my school, and so I would go in the morning, get uji. At lunchtime, there was what we call githeri or corn. That corn, I would still carry it back home in the evening to go eat it. And while my friends were dropping out, I always looked up to that food. So that kept me studying. Things happened, and now I'm here, right? So our business model is very interesting. We are looking at waste, we are looking at unemployed youth, and we are looking at our environment. Those three things are very important to us. Do you know why? Because number one, an informal settlement like Madare. Let me give you a background. 30 to 40% of waste in Nairobi is never collected. And 50% of that population is underserved. And where does that population come from? Places like Mathare, Kibera, Mukuru, Korogocho, and all that. So what this means, and the UN estimates that a household, one dweller per day, produces 1 kg of waste. Now here is the problem. When I take a small strip of land of about 200,000 households, these households produce about 200,000 kilograms of waste per day, which does not leave our community. It ends up in spaces, it ends up in our rivers. So literally, we are normally living on a big pile of waste. So we decided that alongside unemployment, alongside the issue of our environment, there is an opportunity to pivot to climate change. Let's not wait for policies to influence our ways of life, but we can, through that model, come up with something that is a renewable source of energy, that is efficient, that is eco-friendly, and that we decentralize. I will explain what that means because it is also important to us that we decentralize renewable energy sources. Now, through that model, we have been able right now, last year, we did about 100 tons of waste from community cleanups alone. I know you don't have a picture of what 100 tons of waste is, but an average lorry carries about 10 tons of waste. And you can imagine you and young people working to fill up a huge lorry of waste that you collect from tunnels and all that. So it has been a very incredible work that we've been able to do. As I wind up, I'm here to look for partners. And with partners, this is what I mean, in very simple terms. We have come up with an innovation center because the struggle we had while coming up with a social enterprise, the learning curve was so steep for us that we were not sure we were going to make it. And then we realized, oh, we can support other young people to make bigger steps. So we came up with an innovation center, and what it does is purely a peer-to-peer kind of support of other young people who have ideas. These ideas are climate smart, and they are there to create employment for others. So we work with them. We already have a successful one known as Queening Africa that recycles used braids to very beautiful mats, doormats, earrings, and all that. And that is what we are looking for. We are looking for partners who are willing to work with us, who are willing to hop into the startup ecosystem run by young people in our communities who, as perceived, may have little knowledge, but have the passion to do something about their communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Calvin. That was a good one. 2 years ago, I'm not sure whether you are able to tell your stories, but I think it's been a transformational journey, courtesy of partners like UNICEF, Generations Unlimited, and many other partners that have been involved in this Plan International and others that are supporting. But again, what is most important is that you have been learning all through, and you've been enabling others to learn in the process as well. So another big round of applause to Kelvin and Motorbooks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are going to cut the pitching session and just get 2 interactive questions or compliments to what these great people are doing. Then we will transition to the speaker session where we're going to have the panel discussion. So I will allow just 2 inputs. One right here, you introduce yourself, tell us your organization, and then you can go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Evans, and I appreciate the presentation by the first speaker. Last year, the first part of the last year, I was working with Pangea Trust. I think you know it. Anne Lawi was part of the leadership at ASEC. And some of the things that I observed while there is that there seems to be a disconnect between the startups that get funding or get incubated and the ones that are actually doing something on the ground, because which is unfair. What really matters is the pitch deck that one delivers to the person who is going to incubate, okay? And the way the industry is structured is such a way that you don't really have to be making any much impact. You have just to convince me with big words like disrupting, okay? You say you are disrupting, you say you are, there is about AI, you just have to throw in those words somewhere in the financing. I think that's a problem, and I'd like for you, as someone who is in the industry, to address it and tell us how best you can bridge the two. As an example, maybe just as an example, in agriculture, in rural Kenya, you find that every single person has access to a veterinary officer who they can call on their phone. They have a motorbike which can deliver input for their farm. They have an agrovet that they can easily call. But then you'll find a startup somewhere creating an app to connect this. It's another layer of bureaucracy, which is unnecessary. And the other thing I'd like for you to also talk about is, I had noted it somewhere, a moment. Yes, financing. Maybe it's good for you to advise the founders and the entrepreneurs here that they should be careful when getting financing, so that they don't get too much money at the beginning that it affects their growth trajectory. Yeah. So that I don't have an experience of Kune Foods, which burns through $1 million USD in 6 months. They need to be careful with the amount of money they're getting at the beginning to ensure that they grow slowly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You speak like an ecosystem enabler. Thank you for those inputs. We hope to get responses. Some are actually direct pieces of advice. Second person. Okay. John.
Okay, thank you. I'm John Kinochieng. Yeah, thank you so much, Calvin Chikuku, for what you have done. You are doing a wonderful job. It's not the first time I'm meeting you. Yeah. Just a question. You talk of about the unemployment, waste, and environment. Please, can you tell us how is it related with what you are doing? Yeah, like that, mostly about the unemployment that is affecting the young youths in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I'll allow Calvin to respond to that. Then I'll give Fred 1 more minute to respond to the questions asked by the first person. Calvin?
We are fixing unemployment in different ways. There is direct employment, and there are those who are tied to our ecosystem. Number one, our main solution we were trying to offer was also to informal waste collectors. If you look at places like Mathare, informal waste collectors are mostly young people reforming from criminal activities. And they go there because they don't need any licenses, they don't need any skills. It's the best thing to do. But after some time, they find that there is not enough money in what they do. So we were doing some value addition. Mostly, our waste, the organic waste part was never utilized. So we are coming in with that, and with that, the waste collectors, the informal waste collectors are able to get money out of it because we buy the waste. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Calvin. Allow me to give it back to Frederick to respond to the first question, then we can transit.
Thank you very much. I think you've raised quite a number of concerns. Maybe I just want to make a very short comment on it. That yes, there are a number of entrepreneurship support organizations with a number of programs that they are running. And you'll always find that every accelerator has an interest in a certain sector within the economy. And therefore, they're always very sector specific. And second to that, the demand for the acceleration on the incubation services are very high, and too much that we are not able to meet them. In one cohort of say, that is possible, would they be able to absorb like 30 individuals? You receive application for 1,000 or even 1,500 applicants. So how do you sift them through? So that is also a challenge that calls to action for the people within this space that would be able to realize that there's a very big demand for the acceleration and incubation services to be able to support the activities that and the innovations that the young people are coming up with. And as I conclude, I would also want to say that your business model will speak for you. It's not about just throwing words, because when the judges are seated and they're supposed to evaluate you based on your presentation, it is always very open and a very transparent process. So if you put a very solid case and taking into consideration the issues that I was raising and the areas that I was commenting about, then it would let you know that whenever you want to put and tell your story in a manner that will articulate, one, the interest of the people that are seated there, the objectivity of the solution you're providing, and the impact that you are creating within the space where you are going to work. I can pick example of what he has just shared. You can listen to him, you can tell the socioeconomic impact, and then the benefit the solution is creating towards solving the global problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick. In a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Calvin's for his solution?
From the overview, Calvin, I can confirm to you that you're already above 5 because of what you are doing. But the other final bit, the 0.5 and the 1s and the 2s, I would be able to add when I listen to your in-depth presentation and how much you are translating your solution into making money. For me, if you're not making money, then we cannot talk.
Very genuine feedback. It's money or nothing. Money on the box. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause to Kevin and those who have presented so far. We're coming to yet another interesting session of this discussion, and that's where we're going to have the panelists. Allow me at this juncture to invite on stage the very vast speaker, Mr. Ogli Mukhtar, who is working within the Cabinet Office, Executive Office of the President, as the Secretary Strategic Initiatives, in charge of rehabilitation, in charge of de-radicalization, and in charge of reintegrating young people into their communities, especially at-risk youth. Let's give him a round of applause as he gets into the stage. Thank you very much, Eric, and because you're on stage already, but I'd like you to take the farthest seat on the left. Eric Nyamwaru is a colleague in the space, a very enterprising support part of the ecosystem. He'll be able to introduce himself. He is the founder of the STEM Impact Center, doing a great job with young people and children. Allow me to invite again on stage the Cabinet or the County Executive Committee member for Climate Change, Water, Sanitation, and Natural Resources, the County Government of Mombasa, and that's none other than Emily Achieng. Thank you very much, Waziri, at your pleasure. take the seat next to Mr. Mukhtar. Allow me again to invite on stage the only person under 18 in this room, I believe, but deserves to be here, and that's none other than Ramina Paulette. She's the founder of Let Lake Victoria Breathe Again, and she'll tell us much more. She has more than 10 titles. I don't know how many titles I had at her age. Thank you, Ramina, for coming and honoring this session. Lastly, allow me to invite on stage Edwin Odhiambo, who is a co-founder at Motobricks, one of the youth-led and youth-founded innovations in Mathare. And so, one more, who is not the last, who is not the least, but part and parcel of the ecosystem in a great way, and joining us virtually, as I mentioned, is the Executive Director, Leap Africa, Ms. Ayeni. She's already online. Please, if you can put her on screen. Let's have her on screen. I know she's been waiting for quite a while. Hello, Edie, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you all.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning. And I would like to give this first opportunity to you to introduce yourself to us before we go to the audience here physically with us. Please take the moment.
Thank you so kindly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kehinde Eni. I'm calling you from Lagos, Nigeria. It's a pleasure on this platform. Thank you for the opportunity. Leap Africa is a youth-focused organization that is Pan-African in its aspiration to inspire, empower, and equip a new cadre of African leaders with the skills, tools for personal, organizational, and community transformation.
Thank you very much for that brief introduction. We are happy to have you join this conversation once again and feel part and parcel of this great audience and this great session here happening live in Nairobi. Allow me to start with Mr. Mukhtar on this other end to give us a brief introduction of himself as we proceed.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, I'm quite thrilled to be among friends. I need to make two disclaimers. Eric Nyamwaro, Philip Pande, Martin Olo, where's George? All that is my squad. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to be here. This Tripartite, Youth Solutions Dialogue, Climate Action Zone that looks at the nexus between youth innovators, policymakers, and enablers. First of all, I would like to thank the Alliance for Science for convening this conversation, critical conversation to the Africa Climate Summit. Leveraging youth networks across Africa, but particularly in Kenya, in co-creating and cross-pollinating ideas of innovation to tackle the challenges of climate change is a critical matter. I also wish to thank Kelvin Shikuku from Mathare. I think he said all that I wanted to say, but I will not repeat. And also my colleague who asked about the science of pitching and financing is very important. Framing issues matters. Language matters for impact. So the English we speak about, how do you explain to our rural mothers talking about climate securization? Hata Kiingereza ni ngumu. Now for us, with this team, we are able to establish the out-of-school Youth for Science, Technology and Innovation. Though the initial focus was on peace building and community resilience, climate change and climate action became more critical over the years. And in the place of science, technology, and innovation, because they say the future is digital. How we unpack the language of digital, language of technology and science, and align with our native indigenous knowledge and languages is very critical, especially for the younger generation, because you guys belong to the future. I'm also 25, but looking at these issues, how we transmit these opportunities to young people is very important. Understanding the struggles and the conflicts of the past within the nexus of climate change, peace, and security for young people is very critical. For me, mambo ni matatu. People, planet, and peace. How our young people are involved in these issues and create the synergy between these in the context of system thinking. If you look at those as elements, looking at the connection between the elements, what the disruption of one can do to the other for the young people, because the future belongs to you. What do I mean by people? First of all, let's talk about the planet. Let's talk about Mother Nature within the context of climate change. How many minutes do you have, Philip? Lakini kwa maana mimi ni serikali, time is mine. Protecting our climate from degradation through sustainable consumption is very important. Through sustainably managing our resources is also critical. Also, more importantly, the urgency for evidence-driven action on climate change. Data matters, evidence matters. These elements inform policy, and policy shapes the direction of our practice. For young people, if they can leverage the interconnection between those elements, looking at the youth level, youth ecospace, and looking at the policy level, at government level, and looking at the partners, how relevant is it to the demands of our future? These are pertinent questions young people should be asking themselves. People for us, like what my friend Kelvin said in Madare, that is a critical unit of analysis of how we live across Africa. Beyond independence, and for Kenya, have we realized the promise of devolution? Yes. Is it perfect? No. What are the elements in people that we need to look at, young people, to hold others accountable as a generation of change drivers? The elements we look at issues of poverty, hunger, to achieve the full potential for our young people to have alternative, dignified livelihoods, and also with a more robust, precision-targeted interventions that foster inclusive and just societies. My friend here said we need to unpack the English. How do we translate this framing of issues in a way that our young people, our elderly people, our communities, the ecosystem from which we operate understand? Human suffering is global. The indignity we go through as a result of climate-induced challenges, such as floods, droughts, fires, and the scarcity that's induced by conflict over pasture and water where I come from. And most significantly connected to that is the issue of migration and displacement. What is the nexus between humanitarian intervention, peace building, and addressing the challenges of climate change? So as young people, as the drivers for these voices, young voices shape policy. Young voices determine how enablers engage in our ecosystems. He said we need to look at the English that we use. Number 3, what is the place of youth-led, citizen-centric accountability as we focus on the issues of climate action? What is the oversight mechanism we have in our rural communities for climate action? Within your networks, what is your unity of purpose? What is the operative mandate of your networks in terms of outreach for impact? Then we need to have, because it is no longer global warming, these days they call it global boiling. What is our role for human-driven adjustments in these ecological, social, and economic systems? What is our anticipatory reactive adaptation to this? You talk about climate adaptation, climate change mitigation, adaptation. What is that in Kiswahili? None of you can say. Now, what is the public-private partnership within the context of the enablers and the partners who are working with us in this journey? In adaptation, autonomous, and planned interventions that we look at. Finally, let us look at the politics and the ethics of green growth. Look at the ideology, what our national consciousness and awareness informs such interventions, what is the dynamics of our political economy, and what are the alternatives that we are giving as young people, or even at the policy level. There's this carbon credit financing, which is very critical to this conversation. There's also the issue of alternative energies and fossils. In the face of ecological challenges, what is the efficiency of our strategies and the promises to stem the environmental crisis and mitigate its consequences? As young people, for you to frame the future, what is it that we need to do in addressing these social challenges of destitution and disempowerment? He told us how. How can we scale? How can finance reach the appropriate people? He asked us the question about debt to finance our startups. It's a very risky enterprise. And I think he answered that question very well. Finally, what is important in all these conversations is partnership. How to mobilize the means required to implement, mobilize grassroots network for strengthening citizen solidarity. With those few remarks, Mungu awabariki.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a super way to begin the conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, one more time, this is the Tripartite Dialogue Solutions and Youth-Led Solutions. We're going to be hearing from yet another government, and this time the subnational government representative, Waziri Emily. And as you introduce yourself, tell us what the situation looks like in Mombasa and working with subnational governments. How do you incentivize young people in climate action? Do you want to encourage her? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is better.
Thank you, Philip. Good morning. My name is Emily Achieng Okello, the CCM in charge of water, natural resource, and climate change resilience in Mombasa County. Thank you for inviting me to this climate action zone. I know we are all moving from plans to implementation, so this looks like the place to be, especially during this climate action week. As you said, we in Mombasa, well, first let's start with the context. Mombasa is an island, and you know the vulnerabilities of island in terms of climate change, our risks are different. And therefore the conversation of climate change for us has moved from just environment conservation to livelihood options. So that is how we want to get the youth to be involved. The first thing that we are doing is putting the legislative framework in order, because you realize that there's a lot of regulations that need to be put in place to support entrepreneurship, mostly nature-based solution for the youth. So we are currently doing climate change action plan, a participatory one. We have Our climate change officer is here with us. Maybe you can just wave. And then we are also doing natural resource management policy and renewable energy policy. This will help the county to mainstream climate actions because the department is tasked in building a resilient, adaptive city environment. If you look at the conversation of climate change, we are looking at the entrepreneurship option because it's mostly on the production and consumption. So we need to put in place incentives for startups, for youth-led businesses that are climate smart. We have identified several sectors that are key in ensuring that the city is geared towards a low carbon pathway economy. The first one is the transport sector, and then there is the blue economy sector, there's environment, and then there's construction. In transport sector, the conversation of e-mobility is huge. Just the other day, we launched a campaign on the same, especially on the two-wheelers and three-wheelers, and the county has a special levy for tuk-tuk operators and boda-bodas that are and on electric, so they don't pay the same fee as the other operators in the industry. This is just to motivate people in that transition. But we are also talking to partners in the same to see if there are more incentives that the county can give, especially maybe land for charging stations, incentives for companies that can put up retrofixing mechanism for the current existing diesel tuk-tuks. And then if you look at the blue economy, we are trying to organize youths into cooperatives. There's already 100 million grant for the cooperatives as a revolving fund. So we have a team that is multi-departmental that looks into the proposals that come. This is mostly for youth and women, and they are able to get the grant for the blue economy sector. And then in the construction, we are working with our TVETs. You also know there is a need to reskill and upskill because the new way of doing business, the climate smart way, requires that we upgrade the skills of our youth. So we are working with the technical institutions to see that the curriculum is up to task to provide a labor that can support the economy. Just the other day, we were challenged to produce mechanics that can work on the electric tuk-tuk, and we did not have a sufficient number to support that industry. So we are working closely with the TVETs to see that if we are talking about electric e-mobility, we have the right skill to support it. If we are in construction industry and we are talking about maybe recycled bricks to support the industry, we are talking about innovation in that sector. Do we have the capacity to do so? So we are also looking at how can we build capacity for our youth. There's also a lot of awareness creation that we need to do, because transitioning to a different way of life in terms of our consumption and production, it requires some change, and change is not normally easy. So we run different campaigns with the county and with partners, just to speak about what needs to change for us to live in a sustainable environment. We have noticed that the gentleman talked about startups that are not able to get finance, and those that get the finance do not necessarily need the money. So what we are doing with support of partners like Swahili Port, we have different hubs that brings together youth in different sectors, where they are able to get mentors to journey with them through the pitching sessions, so that by the time we have partners that come on board, we do not say there are groups that are left behind that are supposed to get the money. So we have different pitching days. We have Thursdays for environment projects. We have Tuesdays for agribusiness and blue economy. And that's where we get projects that can be linked to partners to support. But as a county, we also know that we need to put in some guarantee. That's where we have the money for the revolving fund, especially for startups. So for us, we are mostly looking on training, on financing, and the policy framework to support businesses in Mombasa transitioning to a greener economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Waziri. It sounds like it's a good time to live in Mombasa as a young person, right? And we are all coming to work within the city of Mombasa. Interesting. 100 million grant for blue economy startups, and that's in the space of climate change, skilling and reskilling, and much more. And especially for the fact that you have a pitching session at Swahili Port. That's strengthening the ecosystem, especially working with youth-led innovation hubs. Perhaps it could be a good time to listen to the Executive Director, LEAP Africa, again as an enabler and a development partner in the space. Edie, if you could hear us, please. How is LEAP Africa involved in the entire space for young people in climate action? You were here about 3 weeks ago, and I know you were in Zambia and a couple of other African nations. We are here with young people represented from at least 14 African nations. What could you tell them as one of the biggest wins working with young people in climate space?
Thank you so much, Phillips, and good morning to all again. Okay. Can you all hear me? I see Philip looking around.
Thank you. We can hear you loud and clear.
Super nice. So thank you again. So LEAP Africa is an enabler, as Philip has introduced. I've also given a brief introduction to who we are as an organization, but we are also a youth catalyst. We catalyze change agents across Africa, and we are very excited about many initiatives that we are pioneering. There are some that we are leading on, definitely in Africa. I'm excited to share some of this with you all. The first one is definitely the one that brought us to Kenya more recently that Philip has spoken of. It's the Youth Day of Service. This is an annual program that we've run for 4 years now in Africa. It's a Pan-African campaign for us to mobilize young people towards the sustainable development goals. A big priority for us as an organization is for us to raise talent for the actualization of the SDGs. And we do this through a very diverse ways. And one of it is the Youth Day of Service that I've just spoken of. Every year, we mobilize young people through projects in their communities that they co-create, that they find very useful and transformative. We take it a step further to finance these projects. So yes, there are micro grants, but it's a lot by the time you begin to look at the number of projects we are financing across the region, across the continent. And in this particular year, we had interest from 33 African countries and almost 4,000 youth volunteers across the continent. And this is not our first rodeo. We've done this in the first year, the second year, third year, and the fourth year. Basically, each year it becomes bigger, richer, and more exciting. In this year, we tapped into the green work and movement in Nairobi particularly, and underscored the work that the government was trying to do there by investing in green skills, in green energy, in green related projects and climate actions of young people. And that's not limited to Nairobi or Kenya, but in other countries across the world. Even in Lagos, Nigeria, we also spend time, putting in trees in order for us to have a planet in so many years when these trees begin to germinate. But that's not the only work that we do. I'm also excited to share with you all our Social Innovators Program and Awards, which is in its 10th year this year. Very exciting for us. When we started out, we were basically just recognizing young people who were pained or energized by circumstances in their environment, in their communities, and wanted to give back. As our social innovators pool have grown, we've also expanded into African countries. And right now, even in the core that we have, I believe there are about 14 African countries that are participating in this accelerator program, where we are really upskilling the innovators, social entrepreneurs to become profitable, impact ready, investment ready, scalable, and more sustainable. We provide wraparound support for them throughout the accelerator year. And we continue to follow up to see how their organizations are transforming, how their impact is changing essentially in terms of the innovation and intervention that they are rolling out and the work that they are doing. And we've seen very exciting work that is being done by our fellows. Personally, as an organization, we are not able to reach all the 17 development goals, but through our fellows, through our alumni of innovators and social entrepreneurs, we are able to actually reach the 17 goals. In this particular year, and in the last 3 months or so, we've been working with one of our partners. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to throw out a name or not, but they are very focused on climate action, renewable energy, alternative source of, yes, you wanted to say something, Philip?
I was saying that you are at liberty.
Okay, thank you so much. So this particular funder is Sahara Foundation, and they are in the renewable energy space. They are very interested in how many fellows who come into the program are dedicated into using resources to create an alternative source of power to save our planet and increase the opportunities in rural communities and even in urban centers, because of course, power is a challenge. For instance, alternative source of energy is a welcome development across the region as well, in places where it's hard to reach with interventions such as power, infrastructure, and things like that. And so this is to say that we look beyond what we can do by extending ourselves through the social innovators and entrepreneurs that we work with robustly. Also to say that in previous years, a huge number of the fellows we've worked with and alumni that have emerged are also working in the climate action space. I speak very fondly of our fellows and alumni, Doyin Ogushola Ogunye. She has been working in the climate action space and gone into waste upcycling more recently. So as our initiative has expanded, so our aspirations have expanded. She's gone from just cleaning up beach in Lagos to doing more of this sustainably in other places in Lagos. She's also set up a center for collecting waste and transforming waste. And we have a huge number of alumni like that working to create home decor out of the products and waste that they found in their environment. But beyond the work that we do in this space is that we've also set up funds to finance the work of our alumni. We continue to provide ongoing support. And even in this year, we are giving out $100,000 only to those people who have emerged as top talent within the social entrepreneurs to continue to foster work within the climate action space and across the SDGs as a whole. Maybe to summarize my thoughts would be to just continue to share with you that we are very keen on pursuing partnership and collaborations that would deepen our work in climate action, in the promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals as a whole. And we haven't, quite reached the mark yet. As you begin to think of the statistics, I mean, I watched the plenary yesterday, and they were talking about global boiling, moving away from global warming. And this is a big phenomenon, and that we cannot be silent, we cannot be removed. We have to continue to champion those people who are invested in ensuring that we have a planet. So I'm going to hold off for now and see if you would come back to me to share more thoughts on this. Thank you, Philip, and everyone.
Most definitely, Edie, I'll come back to you, especially for the reason that you mentioned that there is 100,000 USD to be won. And I believe this is under your accelerator program in the 14 African countries you mentioned. Such a great opportunity for young people listening here, elsewhere following online. Now, we are going to come back to you at the tail end of this. At this time, allow me to introduce again yet another speaker, Eric, who is an enabler in the space. And Eric, a lot of information coming in, money put by the county government, opportunities and policy framework by the national government, enablers like Leap Africa working with young people. As an incubator and somebody that has run accelerator programs at STEM Impact Center and elsewhere in the country, what is the challenge and what are the opportunities for young people in climate action?
Thank you, Philip. Maybe allow me to share from the eyes of lived experiences of supporting startups in the past 2 years. And just to give in figures, if I pick 3 startups, they've been able to access 27 million shillings. And Calvin here was one of the startups that we were supporting. They were the winners of Generation Unlimited in the year 2021, and they were able to win about 3 million Kenya shillings. And we have here Gilbert, also from Aquaban Culture in Kisumu. Very interesting. They began with 1 million shillings. They've been able now to get 10 million shillings more from another funder in the past, and this I'm talking the past less than 12 months. And recently, one that we supported, Sunnywise, who are in the business of doing eco-friendly toilets, handling the sanitation program, started with 60K, this is in 2022, then 1.5 million, then 10 million shillings. They've just won, and they are in the pipeline of winning more grants. So this is a total of about 27 million Kenya shillings that has been won by startups. And the interesting thing here is that Mr. Mukhtar, who spoke here, is my mentor. He's made me who I am, and we've traveled to each and every county in this country with him. And through his mentorship, the question is, what do I do with what I have learned from him? And that's what I've been able to do at the STEM Impact Center Kenya, supporting more startups from young people. So when we see Calvin pitching, when I see the team in Kisumu who have just won 10 million shillings, I'm very happy. Then I tell myself I've done a pretty good job because then they can be able to speak without me coming to say much about that. So the transgenerational mentorship and capacity building, I think Frederick spoke about it very well. And nowadays the phrase is mambo ni mangapi. So, he summed it very well, mambo matatu. It's the problem, the solution, and the market. And what underlines through all those mambo matatu is capacity. So how are we, and our experience then as accelerators supporting startups, largely is the issue of capacity. And I think he put it very well that how can we encourage our grassroots startups to be able to win the big grants. And by the way, all these 3 startups, none of them you will say is from the big city or had big titles behind them. They're just from ordinary people like you and I who have seen a problem, they were able to craft a solution, and then they've identified a market out of it. But then the issue is they have to pitch it somewhere. And that's where the issue of capacity becomes very interesting and very important. The policy framework, as Wazir has said, it's there, it will continue to be there. But I really think is how do we take advantage of the opportunities? And in our experience of working with the startups, and actually did say a good point, is money the problem? I remember one of them did tell me, before we started, we didn't have money and we used to wait for this money. Now the money came and we realized money actually is not the problem. and that's a reflection that we hear. And when you are told, please take time to solidify, understand your problem, craft a good solution, then money will, so that when the money comes, you are executing and you are implementing. Then that becomes very viable. Now, at the STEM Impact Center, we're in the business of the big words. We talk about AI, we talk about machine learning, but in very practical ways. And what we do is we build the capacity of young people and children about emerging technologies. And just to let you know that last 2 weeks back, we had a robotic competition where we're gonna have some young Kenyans going to Panama, another team going to Denmark, and another team going to South Africa to compete at the global level. So we cannot run away from technology. We just have to see how do we leverage on that technology so that it can be able to accelerate the work we're doing. Just also to chime in on what Waziri mentioned about the environment, one of the other startups that we're working with is a drone company that actually is the only licensed manufacturer and operator. Other people have a license to operate, but this specific one has a license to manufacture, which means then you can do add-ons. You can add more sensors on that drone so that it can do more capabilities. And we've done very interesting use cases in the environment sector so that you can be able to accelerate. It could be on aspects of data, training the drone so that they can be able to pick objects from the ground without necessarily taking images and then sitting down to try and say what exactly is it on the ground. So it's about doing a tree count. It can do that very well. So these are the solutions that we have to think about in the climate action as young people who are probably more exposed to the technology that we can bring on board. Lastly, from an education perspective, because then we have to look at the largest young people are found in structured institutions are in the education space. And we have someone in that space already. And if you are keen to look at the education reform for this country, you'll find that climate change has been made part and parcel of the curriculum. They will be mainstreaming as one of the pertinent and contemporary issues that will be taught in all our schools. So you will find a way that by the time the young people come up with solutions, be it at junior school or at senior school and the pathways, then it's very much possible to start having solutions at very early stages. So what I'll say, I go back to my Mambo Matatu, is that there are opportunities. And how do we work with the young people from the grassroots? And I think that's really where the county government comes on board. And we need to spotlight the good works by Mombasa County that has begun and start challenging other counties so that they can follow suit and provide opportunities and platforms for our young people to excel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And I believe no one is as practical as you are in this room, courtesy of the work that you've done with young people. And I want to request us to give another big round of applause to Eric. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing that because I'm confident that there is no startup on the other end of the room that has 10 million in the hands of Eric and another 10 million in the hands of Eric, monies that are going into supporting young people, creating jobs, and facilitating livelihoods. We've heard from the enablers, we've heard from government, and it's such an opportune moment to hear from the real actors, the doers of the actions. I want to invite Edwin. Eric has talked about what you've won. What has been the experience handling money and handling an innovation in an informal settlement? And is money always the problem?
Yes, hello everyone. With my height, I always have to stand, or else I'll be asking, can you see me? Can you see me? My name is Edwin. Yes. I'm a student of urban planning and environmental management, the founder and managing director at Youth and Urbanism. And today we are here to tell the story of Motorbricks Innovation Center and Motorbricks Social Enterprise, which I'm a co-founder too. And I want all of you to appreciate yourselves for being here to further these conversations around business and entrepreneurships and all that. Yeah. I'm here with a very wonderful team of young people from all over Africa that I would really want them to just wave wherever they are. Thanks to Plan for even bringing up more people from all over different countries just to to come and join us. Yeah, even those from Kenya, yes. Yeah, we have a big team of young people just to show that young people can also self-mobilize and join in these conversations. If there is anything that I would want us to leave this meeting with is, it is not just about the business. And that's one thing that I think it took us a long time to realize, that it is not just about business. You can transact, you can make money, but even more opportunity opens up if you start positioning yourself to be a social enterprise, one that produce or create solutions for the society that you live in, the community that you live in. We have been advised that as startups, as small enterprises, we are not advised to start with debt, right? And so you need to get some money because there's a lot of risk associated. And some of the reasons why big companies, big tech companies do well is because they have money to test, try, and fail as much as you can. But Eric, with the little amount you get in seed funding, you don't have luxury to test things 10 times. That 600,000 went to, we are not going to give you the 10 million, right? And so we don't have that luxury. And what does that tell us? That there is no enough resources, there is no enough funding in this space. And as youths, then we need to ask ourselves, where is that resource? Where is that funding? And the solution is becoming, just back to why we are here talking about climate change. I think the solution is in climate financing, right? The solution is in climate financing, and if we are able to leverage on that, then young people will get more funding to test things so many times that at the end of the day, our enterprises will be much refined when we are getting into the market. What we have been able to do through Motorbricks Innovation Center, through Motorbricks Social Enterprise, through Youth and Urbanism is to try and amplify these voices. We have realized it's not just about our business. It's about how do we also support the rest of the community and the rest of young people starting businesses all over Kenya. How do we then amplify these voices? I'll wind up by saying it's crazy nowadays in Kenya, if you don't finish your speech by saying mambo matatu, the three those things, yeah, then you will have not spoken in general. And for me, climate financing trickles down to three things. The fund should come now, right? It is urgent. And so we don't have to wait for COP29, to wait for COP30. It should come now. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that it should be at scale. Easy pesa kidogo kidogo, and my friends from other countries, what I mean is this small money that we are being given might not have great impact. Money needs to come in scale. And lastly, it should be affordable. Countries, African countries, are getting this cash at a very high interest rates in some of these banks, and that is not okay. That's not okay, while other countries are getting it cheaply. And so those three things, it should be now, it should be at scale, and it should be affordable for all of us. And that, I think, will help government and institutions like the CSOs to be able to support the youth-led initiatives in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. And it's always rejuvenating listening to young people in charge of their faculties. As you challenge us on the climate financing, the fund must be now, must be at scale, and must be affordable. The other reminder to all of us is that to whom much is given, much is expected. Thank you. Now, to the last point in the room, last but not least, you are at the center of action, Ramina, at a very tender age. And I want us to just begin by listening to you on what motivates you and what drives you into climate action than anything else. And in 2019, we awarded you the Kidpreneur of the Year at the Lake Basin Innovation Investments Week. How has that transformed your operation and your drive as a climate enthusiast? It's your time.
Well, first, I'd like to mention about the key people who would drive this change are young people and youths. So with the fact that we are living in a continent that's really rich in minerals, but then we are facing a massive destruction that wasn't really caused by us, but because of the global north. Well, all this, when you look at these incentives, when it comes to climate change, it's a big topic. And all of us, I think, from one way or another, have been affected. Motivation comes from seeing young people coming in, both on social media and also spreading the awareness on climate change, how they are going to be actively involved. Support from big, for example, the world leaders and even our own presidents. I really feel like we have come far from the climate space. As I could mention that I started at a younger age. There were not a lot of young people, children who were introduced to climate change. Most of them, they would rather do sports and other things. But seeing the interest in fighting and tackling this climate catastrophe has inspired me and my community in general. That's why I normally with the conferences and say that we need. You awarded me the Kidpreneur 2019 when I was around, I think 14 or 13 during that time. And probably I'd like to take you through as why I won. I'm actually the founder of Ramina Polet Eco Product. Is business that does a lot on making products from the water hyacinth, which is a waste that's found in Lake Victoria that blocks navigation of boat riders and also affects the aquatic. With that, I found the opportunity to bring this change back at home because I am from the Lake Victoria community and create a sustainable solution when it comes to blue economy and also solving the climate crisis. We make products, bookmarks and table coasters, personalized custom products. So whenever these who are amazing people over here, climate finance, speaking about youth involvement, I found it really deep down in my heart because all this is what we are fighting for. We're fighting for this generation, not only the next generation, but this generation, because we're currently living in the present and we need to check up with the reality. As I could actually say about the SB 58, the negotiations that took place in June, I was really disappointed in how much the youth representation was less. And even with the NGOs were not being given access to these main rooms where they're making these decisions. And since we are looking forward to the COP28 that's happening in December, all of us are trying to drive the systems change, be it in the food systems, on agriculture, renewable energy, and all these different sectors. I feel like it's better for us, all of us in this room, to take part in this, because I couldn't just say only doing this. For example, what we do, cleanups, advocacy, and awareness, it's not enough. We need to make sure diplomatic systems are met up with the actions that you're doing. Because even when you look at the climate clock, which states we are remaining with only 5 years to achieve net zero emissions, that up to the low carbon emissions and also striving for the restoration of ecosystems. So I'd like to urge each and every one of you to join in this fight, because it's not only me, one person, who can stand alone. We have to do this together. We have the Africa Climate Summit, and seeing the solidarity of the Africans in these rooms that are pleading for our continent that has been multiply struck by these catastrophes like climate change. We've had instabilities, political instabilities. So I think we should make sure that the opportunity guides us to the right path and make sure that all these voices are included when it comes to these types of conversations, discussions. Thank for inviting me to this amazing event, and I hope that you could be able to speak more further from the Africa Climate Summit, and perhaps our president and the office of the presidency maybe consider endorsing on the Fossil Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is basically advocating for governments so that they could limit the fossil extractions. So if we could be able to pick up this conversation of Fossil Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Plastic Treaty, we could go far ahead as Kenyans. And maybe we can also strengthen our key voices in about the logging, the banning of the log ban of the, what's it called? The 6-year log ban that was lifted. I hope that they could consider it, especially from the Ministry of Environment. So yeah, that's all that I could say. Meanwhile, I appreciate everyone who's here that's taking a key step towards solving the climate crisis and making sure that our voices are not depleted.
If I were you, I would do more. If I were you. It's always interesting listening to Ramina, and I see her, I see a lot of vision. I see a lot of possibilities, because at the age of 12, she was already a founder. Who else is a founder this other side? A founder of anything? A founder of a new name? A founder of an enterprise? Thank you. Pigia Makofi, let's clap for her. A founder of something. Please, we and then to driving an initiative and start something named after yourself, named after your community, and an initiative that drives action. The youth at the table. Ramina, that's where you are, and directly challenging policy. I can assure you that what you're saying is going to end up in the president's ear, because the president is represented by his advisor and secretary strategic initiatives. Now, sir, I would want to come back to you, Mr. Ogley. Things coming up, one directly raised by Ramina on how we are responding to the global conversation on climate mitigation and adaptation, especially in reference to livelihood to young people and rural communities or grassroots communities. We've reintroduced an opportunity for people in the logging industry to that and earn a living. Know that there is a delicate balance between the forests, the green spaces, and also we, the young people that are looking for food and looking for a living. Where is the balance? And how do we preserve livelihoods for young people, for rural communities in that context?
Thank you very much. Can we again clap for her? I like people who generate difficult conversations, then seek for actionable points and interventions in real time. Her age and the bravery and courage, I think, is very impressive. Lakini, at the policy dialogue, mambo ni matatu. I think she raises very good. It is the global north, climate change financing. If you can put those three elements in a basket and gradually unpack, we'll have some direction. The policy and practice coherence on the politics of emissions, which she has raised. As part of the Africa conversation. This, for the first time, is an Africa-centric climate summit, right? You know, in school, we are told about the atmosphere, right? Is that done? The more you do carbon dioxide removal from the atmosphere, you get certificate for decarbonization. Where's my friend who was speaking about language? So we are now. Then to look at the issues, he said, what is our global complementarity on global boiling and carbon emissions? What is the role of youth? People like Martin, the Fab Lab. What is the role of the Accelerator Lab that deploys science technology and targeted innovation to address these issues of emissions. Closely tied to the issues she raised is the issue of green growth and carbon trading. Kule mashinani watu wetu wanajua mambo ya carbon trading. As young people, with the power of your social media, we need to unpack this. She challenged me on two things: on the politics of the fossils and the lifting of the logging, right? Bring it on, we'll have a separate conversation. Mambo ya serikali haifanywi kwa kelele. Then on the issue of carbon footprint, investment in green skills for young people. Tool our young people and preparing for the future. It is very critical. And I think that's where she comes from. How are we shaping the present to secure the future, right? Removal of emissions and planting of trees. Beyond this English, how many of you plant trees? Very good. So we need to plant more trees. Then globally, at the neoliberal policies, there are some things we have no control of, but the narrative is changing. We are reconstructing dialogue around climate change. As I said, this is Africa-centric climate summit. The mode of power that has operated globally is one that, elevates capital accumulation as a principle of governance. But for us, the trajectory for the future is gradually changing. How? We have to be friendly to Mother Nature. How? We must have a strategic reset in how to elevate principles of social economic competition as the guiding principle of humanity's interaction with the natural environment. Wangari Maathai told us, if nature gets annoyed, I'm just paraphrasing. Tell me, what did she say? It fights back and it becomes very vicious, right? So we have to be very cautious. So the new mode of human engagement with the environment, nature as a capital, as a collection of tradable ecosystem services, e.g. carbon capacity, renewable energy capabilities, and rural outreach. My friend, is that English? The vocabulary of the future, therefore, within the context of climate change mitigation and adaptation, must be driven by young people. Through your social media platform, engage your communities. I said, agents of change and change drivers. I think it's more to you than our current political pretenders. Asante sana.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure Ramina will still want to get the questions we are not able to address here. I know those are policy decisions, always ongoing. Now, we fully understand. The minister from Mombasa, Waziri Emily, you mentioned initially when we started the availability of 100 million blue startups and young people. The main issue here is, and with county government, there are always facilities and action. How do we bureaucratize to young people and women to avail them at the right time? Calvin says, transform now and now.
Thank you for that. I think we are the same conclusion that sometimes issue organize to get that money. The 100 million that is tied to the blue economy sector, but we also have other finances. You've heard of this, the FLUCA money that is coming to counties. We, Waziri Mvurya the other day, 1 billion for women in fisheries. in different names, not necessarily called climate financing. And therefore, it is how, as counties, as young people, we prepare ourselves to access the money. Million, we have committees up to ward level, and then we have trainings, capacity. Like I mentioned, we have a panel that looks at the proposals and guide is able to get the already we have 90, I think 97 groups that have received this money, and I think the least group got for members. So we are doing well, but we want to see that the will not disappear because it's a grant. It will come, the projects will be implemented to support other groups. So yes, we acknowledge that there's an issue of access, and that's why we have devolved the structures that look into how people get the money. So they don't say, if you don't know someone in the office, you're not able to get different layers towards approving the money that people get. So also we want to look at partnership. You know that government has their part to play. We have development partners, we have the civil society, and we have the entrepreneurs, like we have here on the panel. So we want to ensure that for us, we build the infrastructure to support all these hands towards climate action. We also want to affirm that this is for now about the future generation. When we are engaging youth, we are asking them, let's work toward current, even as we look at the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waziri. It's interesting to know that this is decentralized to the ward levels where we can have the lowest access. It's interesting, for the first time I hear government disbursement of minimum 3 million to enterprises. We know for a fact that we get 100,000, 50? Okay, for startups. This is a good thing on the part of Mombasa County. Now, Edie, I'm sure you're still online and following the conversation. And like I promised, I would come back to you. Somebody here would be interested in participating in your accelerator program across Africa. You mentioned that 14 countries are currently involved. How do we get more of us here from Equatorial Guinea, from Kenya, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Cameroon, who are all represented here, involved in your competition?
Thank you so much, Philip. So the call for our innovators typically go out about maybe July of each year, and there's a process for it. It's a very competitive pool and a very small class of people annually. So you really have to meet the criteria. But first of all, you need to be young. You need to be between ages 18 to 35 to begin to think about applying. But even more importantly, excuse me, is that you should have an initiative that has taken off. So it's not an idea, it's not something you're still thinking about or tinkering with, but something that has really taken off and has got sustainability, embedded within it. And that's something that can also get you in the way as soon as you find the call for application. We've closed the shop for this year, and that's segueing into our conference that is coming up in October. So for those who have interest in even meeting like-minded entrepreneurs, social innovators in Nigeria and Africa, the conference is a perfect opportunity to start that journey. And I think in that conference, we might be able to put information around the next call. And so be the first to hear about it. If you join the SIPA conference, you can find information on our website regarding the conference. We are talking about disruptive leadership this year. And it's going to be very exciting to talk about what young people are doing in Nigeria and Africa at large, innovation at its peak, how young people are disrupting, how we are looking at leadership at a different lens. And then you can join, if you scale through the process, join the fellowship and qualify for more prizes. What we also do for every year is to find the most outstanding innovators, people who have grown from point A to B. At the end of the fellowship, we evaluate how much they've grown, and that allows them to even qualify for maybe some few thousands of dollars. I can't say the amount in dollars now because I'm not sure about it specifically, but every year there's money, there is financing for our innovators because we want to encourage them to keep pushing for the change they want to see in the world, to keep persevering and being resilient and even transcending into transilience in our own way. We think that young people need the platform, resources, policies, and that will accelerate their growth and the growth of their own communities by their direct involvement. And that's why we are committing not just our resources into it, but also mobilizing more funds to ensure that young people have access into the program, the accelerator program, into the conference that we set up to hear more about the best practices when you think about global positioning and global best practices, and so much more that we talk about when we examine the work that we do with the social entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much, Edie. You can be sure that I'm going to come to you one more time as you make your closing remarks. But again, just to help us know how young people can plug into your conference that is coming up. Again, thank you very much for the good work you do in Nigeria and across Africa. Eric, just in brief, we've heard about accelerator programs, and it would be interesting to advise or support somebody listening to you from this other end. Is it necessary for a startup to join an incubation program? And what sort of help would they get?
Thank you, Philip. What accelerators or incubators do is to provide a startup with opportunities to access capacity, mostly, so that then you can leapfrog your idea or your startup. So it's advisable, and I think we are now growing across the country through ASEC. I think Frederick mentioned about this. Frederick, I think every county now has some sort of hub across. So please, if you could just go check out on the internet about ASEC, you'll be able to find out a hub that is nearest you, and you can be able to pop in and get assistance. They have different business models, but you'll be able to go there and get assistance. But beyond this, Philip, if you allow me, I wanted to mention some of the quick things that people here can start thinking about. And I saw my Philip Gibson coming in here. Gibson leads the Kenya Resilience Program, and they do support startups. So Gibson, please, if you can just wave your hand so that any young person here who could be wanting to see you and they need support is one of the persons who support resilience-based startups or innovations. You can talk to him. But beyond that, I wanted to mention something about what Waziri mentioned, and you can write this one down, please. Financing locally led climate community actions, FLOCA. It's a mechanism of the national government to fund businesses, and it's going to be based at the world level. So please go read that and plug in from the world level and see when it's going to coming out. I repeat, financing locally led climate community actions, FLOCA program by the Treasury, Ministry of Finance, and it will be distilled all the way to the world program to support green businesses. So that's an opportunity. And then we have UNICEF launched a program called Be Green, and where they'll be supporting about 2,000 young persons who have ideas in the green economy. Watch out that it's coming up. All you have to do is just send an SMS to what's the code? 2024, the word green, you'll be able to get more information. The Presidential Innovation Program that was launched by the Minister of Sports, if you have an innovation, please go on there, submit it, it will be recognized. Finally, we'll have the Kenya Innovation Week in November 27th to 1st of December, Commonwealth Edition. Is yet another platform for any one of you who has an idea that you want to showcase or participate in that global program to get more information. As Phillips comes back, the challenge of how to support startups, Kenya Innovation Week is developing what we call a maturity index. So that if your startup is 0 to 1 years, really that government should be able to come and support it, because then there's possibly no much return expected from such. So matching your level of maturity to potential funders or investors is something that is being worked on from Kenya Innovation Agency level. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you very much, Eric. That was important. And Flocker is worth 7 billion and more. Allow me to take an interlude now to introduce a good audience all the way from Cameroon. And I want to allow Mr. Mukhtar to give that opportunity to our guest from Cameroon.
Yes, actually, I was very impressed. Since this is a youth forum and a platform of engagement, I saw a very young girl here, and it's important. Natural justice demands that we hear her voice despite our barriers of language. Can you come forward here? Then my friend will translate for her.
Thank you very much. And I think this takes us to the question, the moment of interactive session. So after we are going to have questions from the audience, then I'll come back to the youth panelists as we answer in that order. Please. He's not a French translator. Do we have a French translator here? Okay, so just like they've been listening to us, okay? Go on.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Please try.
She said, good morning to everyone.
Je réponds au nom de Gallo Mariama.
My name is Gallo Mariama.
J'ai 14 ans.
I'm 40 years old.
Je suis élève en classe de 10e année.
I'm a pupil from first class of high school.
Et je suis la présidente du Parlement des enfants de Guinée.
I'm the Guinea Children's Parliament President.
Alors, d'abord, je voudrais vous remercier pour l'invitation de nous avoir invités à ce sommet sur le climat. Vraiment, ça nous va droit au cœur. Et ici, nous sommes là pour donner des solutions pour lutter contre le changement climatique. D'abord, le changement climatique.
We are really enjoyed and grateful to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And if you are here together, it's to give solutions about climate change all together.
Le changement climatique, c'est la variation des températures.
She climate change definitions, but I don't know how to translate it.
Alors, nous avons beaucoup de causes.
There is a lot of reasons of this climate change.
Premièrement, nous avons les déchets plastiques.
First of all, there is plastic. Plastic.
Les conséquences.
Plastic pollution.
Les conséquences sont très alarmantes en Afrique.
In Africa, climate change effects are very, very important.
Les autres continents polluent vraiment, en fait, le monde. Et la faute revient sur nous. Nous sommes les vulnérables. Nous avons environ 4%. Et ça s'abat en plein fouet sur nous, en fait. Donc,
other countries and continents are the most have the bigger impacts if we take the climate change effects, but us Africa have the biggest. She wanna say that it's not Africa who's the biggest continent who pollute, yes, but all the consequences is on us.
Alors, nous avons plein d'autres causes et conséquences. Et pour ne pas abuser du temps, je vais parler des solutions. Donc, vraiment, la première solution, c'est de se tenir la main.
So, she's giving solutions to fight this. Yes, And the first solution she's giving is to be together and to give our hands. I don't know if your hands. Exactly, solidarity.
Nous, les Africains, pour vraiment lutter contre le changement climatique.
All Africans to fight this climate change.
Avec la participation de chacun et de tous. Merci.
Thank you.
Bonjour. Je m'appelle Philippe Pande, and I'm not responsible to you not knowing French, but I'm responsible to me learning French from today because I'm challenged that I can't be able to translate French to my audience. My apologies that you've not been taken care of properly. We hope that next time, in our next session, we'll have a translator.
Share our ideas, but the language is the problem.
Absolutely. And we appreciate your presence, we appreciate your participation, and for translating this to us. We agree that Africa, we speak Swahili, all of us, so that we don't have language barrier in Africa. And because I'm coming back to you in English, please just ask questions in the language you understand. Don't try French. Questions? Okay, so 1, 2, 3. I'll give an opportunity to 5 questions, then we come back and wrap up because we have just 3 minutes to go. The 4th is there and the 5th is here, in that order. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is June from Youth and Urbanism, Motorbricks, Madare. My question is from the government official. So when you talk about climate action, there is an aspect of climate justice that comes with it. And there's a lot of conversation that as much as young people are doing a lot of things to curb into climate change and to fight the climate impacts, there is the fact that there's a lot that the government needs to do in terms of changing the system so that whatever the young people are doing can be tunnels, because we can do as much as you can do a lot of things, there's a lot of limitations in terms of reaching the government and getting the finances. And yesterday I managed to watch the news on the first day of African Climate Week, and there were questions on, I'm glad that the current government is applauding the green as talking and also challenging the themes of climate change, but there's an aspect of is it just talks or there is action? I saw the president came in with an electric vehicle, but the CS cabinets that followed, all the vehicles were, like they did not emulate what the president is. So the question is the climate justice being applauded by the government official or the young people are just making noise and there is no action? Thank you.
Thank you very much. June, is it action or just talk? That was the second person. Okay, thanks.
I think I'm tall enough. I would just sit. So I'm Kennedy Sankara. I believe all of you know me. My question goes to my friend, the Honorable Cabinet Secretary from Mombasa. You know, being a leader in Kenya is not easy. So when you are one, please allow me to address you as an honorable. So my question is, it's a comment and a question. The ecological risk analysis recently shows that Mombasa's vulnerability spread across the 4 sectors that I'm about to mention. One is the effect on sea level rise. The second one is coastal erosion. The third is health of the existing mangrove. And the fourth one is pollution and from the key sectors and urban households. Personally, I'm a frequent visitor of Mombasa, though my hometown is in Kisumu. The asshole zone is Nairobi, and the leisure point is in Mombasa, the chill zone. So, whenever I come to Mombasa, on the solid waste management, that's where I dwell. Sorry, do I continue? So, my point was on solid waste management. When you visit Mombasa around VOK grounds in Nyali, I specifically visit Nyali. That place, the proximity of VOK grounds and the beach is very close. You look at the the waste disposal at that particular point, it is enormous. Knowing that 32% of Mombasa city is located on a low-lying zone with the continuous coastal erosion, suppose anything like sea rise happens, we are going to suffer great financial losses. And my question is, what are you going to do to ensure that the safety, the health of the existing mangrove is protected vis-a-vis the coastal erosion, and as well the waste management that we can actually change to generate money, because you understand this, the position of young people around Mombasa. To conclude, I would say, next month I will be in your city to celebrate my son's birthday. I will look for you with a comprehensive solution that we can use to actually change the situation in Mombasa. Thank you.
I will join the party. Now, we had a third person. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Brenda Kombai, and my question is, as much as we appreciate the startups, the initiatives, and the opportunities for your youth, mostly, to get those funds or climate finances to act and combat these climate change problems, what do we do in matters people who are already facing repercussions of climate change in the bracket of loss and damage? How do we ensure they are upscaled and they are uplifted for them to also compete for these initiatives and startup funds equally with other youths who have not been exposed yet to the effects of climate change?
Thank you, Brenda. That's noted. Who was the fourth person? The fourth, then the fifth, and then we close.
Well, thank you very much. By name, I'm known as Onyango Lennox Ndeda. I'm a fifth-year student of civil engineering at the University of Kenya, with a great aspect into earthquake engineering. Furthermore, I take diploma in theology, of course, higher diploma in theology at Zion Raju Pentecostal Bible College in Hyderabad, India. My question is going to be very much natural and organic. So very quickly, pursuant to time, many times, I don't know the realms of the position that you people sit in the global balance and converse, but when we talk about nuclear, anytime nuclear facility, every country threatening nuclear here and there, that is the greatest threat to our economy, actually, our climate. So in your realms, as you interact with higher profile leaders who can sit in positions to make the decision making, whether in Scandinavia, whether in Brazil, whether in Perth and Ben, Australia, Seoul, South Korea, or Tasmania, or even Kisumu. Do you people have an influence to ensure that we people live at these threats of nuclear everywhere, battles and nuclear? Can that? Another point, very quickly, the question that arises as an enthusiast of seismic engineering, what do people call earthquake engineering in simple terms? Is there a way in which you people can ensure that you give a pragmatic approach so that African buildings can be retrofitted to that realm, so that in case of extreme earthquake condition, we are highly safe? Otherwise, Onyango Lennox Ndeda, 50 year.
Lennox has confused me. I don't know whether the panelists would be able to respond to those questions. Last one.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Waichoka, an air quality practitioner and also a GIS and remote sensing enthusiast. My question is very specific as a researcher. I would like to know, as much as we have a number of solutions, mine is we usually look at evidence-based, yes, you have the solution, but to what extent have you been able to mitigate, if it's that carbon? Yesterday, I was trying to do a habitat assessment for a particular ecosystem in our country. But I realized some data sets are not available, like carbon pools, and we have some RED Plus projects in our country that are taking place in Kasgau corridor, wildlife corridor. There are some very good interventions. So I would like to know, why don't we make these data sets available so that we can be able to help our communities curb some of these challenges in matters pertaining climate change? Let's not make life so difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's not make life so difficult. And we keep talking about simplifying the language of science, the language of climate change, and all that. That has been spoken about since the beginning. I took an interlude to take the questions, and I would want to do justice to the two young panelists. Please take this opportunity to once more encourage your colleagues on this other end as you respond to the questions, because this would also work as the closing remarks for the panelists. I start with Edwin.
Thank you. I think we can all appreciate that the young people are doing due diligence. Have you heard some of those terms? I'm sure if we put them in some of our officials and ask some of these questions, they will be good and just have good conversations with the specialists in the room. And that brings me to a point that it is no longer time to say that we are doing just youth empowerment. I think we are already there. We need to start now having serious solutions and discussions, because we have been hiding behind the word empowering. Oh, they don't know, we need to teach them. They don't know that we need to teach them. If I have my professor brother the 5th year, and you realize he can really have good conversations with people. Now, a few things that I just took. Number one, I think governments, civil society organizations, and generally organizations that we look up to in terms of involving the young people in the global conversations, one ask that we need to all amplify is that all these things should be systemized, within our systems. Because if someone just brings maybe 2 billion now, we may think it's a lot of money, and we have had from various initiatives a lot of money that is just lying around waiting for the youths to apply for them. But if this is not within our systems, then we may not have them next year. Or what about next year but one? And when we are talking about intergenerational conversations, what if the conversation goes down? Will we still have the funding? So putting them into our systems is one thing. Number two, solutions. This is where youths can really thrive, coming up with solutions. But again, you need to monitor. Us as Motorbricks and all the initiatives we are working with, we try and learn more about monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning, just to see, is it impact? Because how many people have heard of false solutions? So many. And so when I'm answering that question, I will also look at, are our solutions really helping us? Are they meant for us? For loss and damage, let's meet at COP28 as we wind up the conversation on loss and damage. But again, let's amplify that we have so many people suffering but can't access these rooms because of damages caused by climate change. The best we can do to them as per now is to amplify those voices. But when we go for the negotiations in COP 2028, where we'll be finalizing on the conversations, let's speak out. Let's ensure that that is something that is done. I'll just wind up, because maybe this is the last time I'm speaking, and ask the young people that as much as we are asking governments and organizations to do something about us, and it's good that we got involved in the African Youth Climate Assembly that just ended, and we submitted some of our declarations to the president. And a lot of, if you have not read that, please make sure you read it. But as we do that, we need also to do our part. We need to connect. Don't leave this room if you don't know me. Don't leave this room if you don't know her. Don't leave this room if you don't know your fellow youth sitting next to you. Because when we go to these conversations as a unit, then that's the best thing. Currently, what I do, if you invite me to any talk or panel like this, if I'm not coming with over 15 youths, then we are not coming, right? And that is the thing that I want us to do. Let's connect and work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. And we must do it, because it's not just a time to complain. I want to invite Ramina. as you respond to some of the questions, also take a moment to just advise the young people sitting here, following online, and how do we move forward from here?
Maybe I'd like to address the issue on the loss and damage. I think it's really critical. And the fact that a lot of youths, especially last year, were fighting for the loss and damage finance to be settled at the COP27, which was really a hard task. But we really appreciate the leaders who were there, who managed to negotiate on our behalf. Although that's not the last step, with the SB 58, they were looking into getting a host for the loss and damage fund. So I think with the COP28, we can get to see what will happen. So for us right now, we're just holding to our hopes and lacks that this will be considered on 11th and 12th December, because that's when the last negotiations are taking place. Well, for us as youths, I feel like we are normally segregated when it comes to such conversations and dialogues, because it's not just that we come to these conferences, just to appear there as youths, but we need to have a seat at the table. We need to be involved in such discussions, since it's critical for all of us. I'm not only speaking about youths, but also children, as we've had the Children Summit, but why not even including them at the African Climate Summit, So I just think with us as youths, we've been having a lot of gaps when it comes to accessing knowledge, accessing information, accessing opportunities to even attend such conferences, because you see, even in Kenya, we are experiencing a high rate in unemployment. And this also affects us, because we are not only just fighting for climate change, but we also need to fight for our life. So I just think if we could come up with a lot of ways that we could integrate on innovation and skills, so that we make ourselves more sufficient, on our pocket, and also while it comes to accessing these opportunities. I just say that we need to be fighting in solidarity as Kenyans. We might have different opinions and views on climate change or other things, but when it comes to the people who are suffering, we're the ones who are suffering. And for the honorables that are here, I'd like to maybe encourage you to hold our hands and to make sure that we are considered when it comes to such matters, even on finances and the implementation on the policies. Yeah, for the children, I think there's one of the child over here, but we also had some children. I just like to encourage you that it might be so hard for us with our age, that we get to be looked down upon, but I would like to say that you just do you, and do what you have passion for, because the earth is looking on you, because we normally say that the earth, we are living on the earth and we need to look after it because it's our home. We don't want to live in mass. So we better be doing something right now than being sorry. So we are only left with 5 years. I'm just reminding you, we're only left with 5 years. So let's do what we have to do to make sure that we do not go to another planet, and to make sure that our leaders have maintained their promises that they have made. Thank you.
5 years to go. Do what you can do. Do what you can do now. Edie, I'm sure you're still online, and I want to return to you at this time to ask that if you have a moment, please respond to some of the questions that were put, if any touched on your work, but also use the moment to advise us on how to plug into the Leap Africa's conference that is coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure anybody is going to try to respond to the question on the nuclear powers and the nuclear wars and the nuclear energy, but those are very tough questions. And thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Proceed.
Thank you. I think I'm going to summarize all my responses to address a couple of the questions without meaning to call out anyone. The first one is, active citizenship. So when we think about not allowing the government to just share their plans with us, the people, the citizens also need to do a bit of work. And that is the active citizenship bit of it, where they need to hold them accountable. When we talk about saving the planet and taking climate actions and ensuring that we are moving rapidly towards solving the gaps and closing the gaps that still exist in the SDGs, then the people, young people, need to be involved and invested. And I'm not just calling on young people now. When I speak about people, we're talking about all the demography of people that will benefit if we have a continent or a planet today. And so that element is very key. Another issue that I've found over time is the lack of continuity and political instability in our countries has made it difficult for our government to follow through with specific agendas. So when you have elections coming through every 4 years and you have party movements and all of these factions happening, it's impossible for any successful sustainability project to be concluded in a life cycle if there is no continuity. And that's also where young people and citizens need to play their part in ensuring that they keep demanding for the resolutions, for people to walk the talk, and their president, the government, the global leaders to take a stand on something. The international community also need to take a stand on something. Civil society organizations need to take a stand on something. That way we are mobilizing directly into something. I believe it's good to have one big agenda that serves the good of everyone versus us doing different things at different points in time. So big one is continuity through active citizenship lens or active participation of the people. The second thing I will speak to is systems level approach. So we cannot look at the issues regarding climate change, climate action in isolation. We need to approach it systematically. And I think someone has said that on the panel already in terms of looking at the root cause. How can we sustainably address a situation rather than addressing the surface level issue that we've seen? How can we move in a targeted manner and way to ensure that this is not repeated or there is an action sustainably to ensure this is providing leverage for all parties involved? That is very important. So systems level approach is very key. The third thing I would say is the result-based management side of these things. And someone already touched on that a bit when he was talking on the monitoring and evaluation. When we speak to climate action and our continent and the planet as a whole, we are saying that we need to have specific outcomes that we want to see. What is it looking like for us in our respective quarters? So private sector, public sector, social development sector, they have their own respective agenda, outcome initiatives, projects, and all these things that we are all doing separately. But remember, we need a tri-sector partnership, a tri-sector an holistic approach and management system that allows us to consolidate on these things, that is speaking to the solutions and the results and not just action. So taking it further. And I would also touch on localization. So the issues in Kenya, the issues in Zambia, the issue in Madagascar, the issue in Mauritius or any other country, not specifically any of these ones that I've called on, need to still be localized. We cannot apply global solutions without looking at our immediate environment. So the UNGA is happening throughout this month, and there's a lot of conversation between global leaders, public sector leaders, in business, wherever, and they are all talking about the sustainable development goals. They are talking about climate change, artificial intelligence, and emerging issues that we call the 21st century problems. But still, we need to begin to look at the solution that will come out of these discussions and localize them. That way, again, it underscores the previous points I've made. And as I close, and I think it's to connect some of us who are really excited about doing something right now. So the lady on the panel, I'm sorry I didn't get your name properly. She talked about transforming iSense into materials. We also have people within our network in the program I spoke of who are also using the iSense into materials. Imagine if we connect these two together, and we're able to share and export goods and services across countries just because we found someone who is an expert in one or another that is willing to trade in another area. I believe this is going to unify the solutions that we are creating, and we don't have to rejig or refine the work super hard, because where your work starts is where someone else's stops, and where someone else's stops is where yours starts. So it's important that we make that connection. So if you want at any point in time to find a way to get invested or get introduced into the world of social innovation, social disruption, then feel free to call on Leap Africa. We can make those connections for you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Philip, and to the organizers in general for having us today.
Thank you very much, Edie, Leap Africa, Kehinde Eyemi, for staying with us to the tail end of this discussion. And I would come back to Eric in closing and in response to one of the questions.
Thank you very much. There were many questions, and I think from even as I sit here and listened, one thing I come out of this place with is opportunity. Amidst all these challenges of climate justice by June, Sankara about the ecological issues at the coast, Brenda, those already affected, my friend with the nuclear stuff, and James, air quality practitioner. I pick one. James, I mentioned here that we support a startup that operates drones, and we recognize that data is an issue, and we know that data is the new business. So we've started crafting something, a platform that collects data, and we can work with you to co-create sensors that can aid in detecting some of the things that you want to pick up from the atmosphere, and then upload those things on a platform that can be accessed by many people, including the policy players. So my response to this is, amidst all these challenges, what opportunity are you seeing? And how can you turn the opportunity into something that earns you a livelihood? That's the challenge I throw back to all of us. I've picked one. Thank you.
Opportunities, a good way to wrap it up, Eric. I come to Waziri, CC in charge of climate change, Mombasa County. Emily, it's your time.
Thank you, Philip. Mine was on the issue of solid waste in Mombasa, and I can confirm that my friend has not been in Mombasa for the last 8 months because there's no dump site in VOK, and we've actually closed almost 33 illegal dump sites so far. So,
a round of applause to Waziri and Mombasa County. Sankara, you need to visit more frequently.
And I welcome the birthday next month because we understand that mangrove is a critical ecosystem for our county, and we have embarked on a rigorous restoration campaign. Just last month, we had a mangrove mud bath, and we were creating awareness, but also we were fundraising for beacons because we want to create a buffer around the mangrove ecosystem. And we realized that encroachment is a big issue. So we want to put up beacons to create a buffer to protect the mangrove ecosystem. But also we have very many community-based organizations that are supporting in the restoration work. We are currently in a process of forming the County Forest Association that will be able to help the department support different user groups on nature-based solution. Because we are promoting restoration that will put money into the pocket. We said that this is about livelihood, and therefore even restoration needs to count to something. Lastly, on the conversation of climate justice, I think this is more on realizing that there are people who are affected at different proportion and putting up resources to support those groups. So even as we are hoping that the loss and damage fund will be actualized in the COP28, but as a country, we also want to ask ourselves, what is our contribution as a department, as the ministry, because the ministry was supposed to have a climate fund separate from what we get from development partners. So it is this fund that would support counties build the infrastructure that is required for them to attract even investors in climate change. So yes, we are looking at the policy framework and seeing how we can support vulnerable groups. Lastly, there's the issue of nature capital asset. You've had the president talking about that our balance sheet does not reflect the carbon that we take in. So as counties, we also look into data and research to see that we can have numbers that will be able to help us, even if we want to charge people for ecosystem services. There's a support that can say this is how you're consuming and this is what you need to pay. Lastly, I want to thank the organizers of this forum. I think we've moved from lamenting that we are not part of the main summit. We are here. We have our voice, and we are saying that we matter because we need the youth vibrancy and innovation to make this work. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Waziri. A good point to wrap it up. We are part of the discussion, and this is where it's happening. To government himself, Mr. Ogley.
Thank you very much. Before I give my closing remarks, I can see Omera Nuclear has left. I think for him and for people with such innovative ideas, it's important they deploy. Like for him, he's a guy of solid physics, so he should help us deploy and help the country. He talked of systemic engineering. This is a generator of ideas at the university. So the ideas you generate must inform policy and practice. To Brenda, I think somebody told you, do you. It's a new vocabulary I picked here today. Cheza kama wewe, sio? So which means, let us connect and catalyze action, advocacy for social justice, youth-led, targeted commitment, and a critical mass of youth movement to handle these issues. On my closing remarks, I want to acknowledge that this has been a very interactive session, and I would like to thank Philip and Eric for the invite, and also Alliance for Science. I think the nexus between youth, policy, and enablers will not have been a better mix. And you have seen the fireworks that have come here. But for me, after we have talked, after we have said all this, the question to ask, like any researcher, is so what? What is our next course of action? How can we make these forums, recommendations that you have had, to make a difference for you, so that next time when we meet, it makes a difference. Particularly examining the institutional relationship between public-private sector and youth presence, and framing our desired future. Kazi kwenu. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause to our panelists. A good way to wrap it up. 25-year-old Mr. Ogle Mukhtar, the advisor to the President of Strategic Initiatives. Thank you very much for being part of our discussions this morning. Yeah, and for sure, we know that you're not 25, but you're 25 at heart. Now, we thank you, Executive Director, LEAP Africa, Ms. Kehinde Ayeni, for staying with us from 8:30 Nigerian time all the way to this time, 1:30 Kenyan time. We thank you, Waziri, County Executive Committee member in charge of climate change, Mombasa County, Ms. Emily Achieng. We thank you very much, Ramena Paulette, founder, Let Lake Victoria Breathe Again, the Climate Clock Ambassador, the only one in Kenya and in Sub-Saharan Africa. We thank you, founder, Motorbricks, Edwin Odhiambo, who has been part of the discussion, fiery in all and every sense. Eric Nyamwaro, a great part of the ecosystem supporting innovations, incubation, and practically financing and leading or interacting with young people to get support in spaces where they could. Active citizen participation, ladies and gentlemen, that is the core thing we take away from this. Be ready Financing does not find you without an idea, without a vehicle, without a solution. Systemic approach, and all solutions must be local for that matter. This has been the Tripartite Youth Solutions Dialogue, hosted by Alliance for Science and convened by Forgotten Bottom Millions. I want to take this opportunity to once again thank all of you, and please give yourselves a round of applause one more. One more time for our panelists. I thank you very much. I want to invite the Chief of Staff, Alliance for Science, Mr. K, to present a gift to one of the panelists. I wish I could present one to each and every person. But because we've centered this around young people, it probably goes to the youngest. And I see Mr. Mukhtar is nodding. I have given something to Edwin, and that's mentorship. Edwin, there is no equal to mentorship. So that's what you get for the day. And of course, Eric is my colleague in the space. Sometimes we do a lot with him, including those other things. And Waziri is a boss. The boss is a boss. Thank you. Thank you very much. And please, thank you for accepting to be part of us.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for anyone who is listening online. As the Alliance for Science, we are proud to be a partner of this process. We believe that the youth voice is significant. It is the present and the future of Africa. We believe that there is authority, there's ideas, there's solutions, there's ingenuity, which will help us get to where we're trying to go. I would like to present this as to the youngest. And the youngest, we present you, Ramina, with an African stool. This is a seat of the elders. And what we are saying is that the youth have a seat, right? It is also a token of status. It is to say that you are wise, you are able, and your voice will be heard. So even as you take this on behalf of many young Africans who are trying to make a difference, and where platforms are available, ensure to take your place and provide guidance to the future you want to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And one good thing that we've done is we've extended by about 30 minutes so that you don't queue for food. So food will be served downstairs on the first floor at the terrace. Please, you're all welcome to join that. We may not really have an opportunity to take any rebuttal this side. We've closed. Yes, we're going to have two photos. One is for the panelists, and the only person that might join them is by declaration myself. And Kai on behalf of Alliance for Science. And then we are going to have one for the rest of us, all of us together. Please. Yes. Okay. Okay. As that happens, let's take the first photo, the panelist. Then, wow, what a creativity. A round of applause to. Thank you. And the best is usually kept for last. I think this is the best. Kai, please join us. Angienda, Fred, please join us because you began the session. Thank you for this climate action. This would be symbolic. You can smile on our behalf. Yes, and please remember to discuss. The rest, please smile for at least 1 minute. Which one is going to the dailies? Thank you very much. The rest of us could join, as many as possible that could fit this space. John? Yeah. Oh, sorry, sir. Mhm. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Sasa. Well done. Asante sana. Yeah. Yeah, we'll still hold this. If you're not part of this photo, you are not here. Oh, our friends from Guinea, Cameroon, please. Language barrier, but please stand here. Please come on.
What you do, you tall guy.
Come on the platform, yes. Please, you also come up. Thank you. Oh, was it? I didn't know that. I'm taller than. Now the cameraman could smile as we take this photo. Okay, let's take with what's available. Any action, youth action. Well, youth are not dull people. Wakanda, let's do Wakanda. We are there. Okay, thank you very much, good people. Thanks for staying this long. Please don't queue for food because there will be no queue.